Hello, everyone. Math and love may seem unrelated, but they intersect in surprising ways. In the next hour, we'll explore how math and love are connected. This topic came to me after reading Edward Frankl's Love and Math, The Heart of Hidden Reality, where he draws on philosophical parallels between the two. So, if you're new here, I'm Alice, and we discuss tips, strategies, and frameworks for personal and professional development. So thank you so much for joining Get By, Make It with Alice. All right, I'm going to get right into some of the core. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to get right into examples for on how math and love are related. But before we get started, how many of you, actually, we have one person, so I'm going to ask Stanley directly. Have you ever thought about how math plays a role in falling in love? I'm curious. Because actually, I haven't thought about it until I read the book. And yes, math is so important. And one of the things that I discovered in this book is the philosophical parallels between love and math, and something we overlook, especially when we talk about personal relationships, romantic relationships, and just the idea of love. We just don't think how it is highly predictable, how we fall in love, what kind of habits we have, and what we do when we are in love. So I'm going to first draw on the book and some of the key insights from this book before I go into some examples. So Stanley says, I use it for far too many decisions in life. Hi, Jake. Unfortunately, I don't use enough of math to make such important decisions in life. Never specifically for love, though I firmly believe there is math to romantic relationships. Absolutely. Hi, Edward. Welcome back. Thanks, Jake. Thanks for coming back online here. And Stanley, as always, thank you for joining. Stanley will be our moderator. So the book is interesting. It actually came to me from one of my friends who's a doctor, and he randomly asked me if I read the book, and I just loved the title. So I went into reading it, and here are some of the key insights from the book. Number one, love, like math, is a universal language. So both love and math transcend cultural and temporal boundaries, connecting people and revealing hidden structures of reality. Just like love and math, we have a framework on how to love and how to do these math equations, right? If you think about it. And at the fundamentally, love and math are universal language. So the other insight from this book, number two, is pursuit of beauty. So falling in love mirrors the discovery of mathematical truths, both evoking awe and fulfilling a fundamental human drive for beauty. So, just like if you think of geometry and shapes, they're beautiful. And the way that shapes fit together, it forms symmetry. And just like we look at beauty, we tend to be attractive to people who are more symmetrical, especially in the face and even the body. And we're more attracted to math where the equations and especially shapes sort of fall into place. If you ever look at nature, everything, every leaf, every snowflake has a structure and it's geometric. So a snowflake is perfect geometry. It's how if you actually fold a snowflake, it's exactly the same. And you see that a lot in nature, and that's why we think that nature is so beautiful. Number three is from this book, vulnerability and risk. So both require courage. Love risks heartbreak, and math risks failure. But these challenges make these rewards more meaningful. You know, in our culture, especially in the West, if you look at American culture, we celebrate failures. But if you go to most European cultures, failure is just not really an option. It's not received as well as in the United States. But if you think of math, if and love, to have a breakthrough, whether in your romantic relationship, a breakthrough of self and of the unit, you must be vulnerable. Just like math, you can't, any advancement in math or physics requires failing and trying. And just like love, you try and try until you somehow understand the other person. Um, and I think it's really important. Next thing to think about is number 4 is infinite depth. So, like math's endless complexity, love deepens infinitely, offering these a new way of exploring and exploration and meaning. So love is infinite. And when you're with someone, you can infinitely explore them. And there's people out there that I know that after 20 or 30 years of marriage or love, let's say, and the two may or may not go together. You could love someone without being married to them, and you could also love them if you're married to them. Um, they discover things about each other, even up until the last moment that they're alive. And it's a beautiful thing because the human psyche and the human being is complex, just like math equations. And it's also beautiful to be vulnerable and courageous to discover and be brave to discover the other person. Just like it takes a lot of bravery to um, study math, discover some of its complexities. So that one was really cool for me and understanding that. The next one, number 5, is connectivity and unity. So this was a great insight from the book because both math and love foster profound connections. So love with people and math with the universe, they transcend the mundane. If you think about um, if you think that at the heart of humanity, we do things out of love or hate. And if you, what drives us towards someone is love. What drives us away from someone is the opposite of love, is hate. So there's this connection and continuity, and there is that unity that happens when you have these profound connections. And especially when you have this connection to love, there is a sense of cohesion, integration of yourself, your being, but also integration as two people becoming one. And that's something that doesn't necessarily take, it takes time, but it also takes depth. There's people out there that are together, them, they're together in relationships 10, 20 years, and it's not deep because they choose not to explore one another. And there's people that have maybe 5 years of relationship and they go through a lot of depths together. So nothing is surface level in love or in math. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to take a moment here. Edward has a comment. Um, there's also math everywhere in the world, like Fibonacci sequence. I don't know that one. If you want to reflect on that, I'm actually curious. And Jake, Alice, your voice sounds a little bit staticky on my end. So let me see if it's, I'm going to try to, is everybody okay? Hear me okay? Stanley, how's my voice? Let's take a moment here. Edward, you guys hear me okay? Golden rule, the 90-10 applies so much in life. Oh, I thought that there was Pareto's rule, 80-20. I'm going to talk about the golden ratio in a minute, actually. So I'm going to try to disconnect the mic if there's going to be any more static, but if not, then I will continue. The next insight from the book is, and the last one is source of motivation. So love inspires creativity and growth, much like passion for mathematics, which drives discovery despite challenges. So this one was really important because, like math, love inspires growth because you have to continue to explore and discover and be creative to put different pieces of the equation together, to put different pieces of the person together that informs your picture of them. I mean, in the beginning, in the honeymoon period, we have our rosy glasses on, and when we take them off, that's another layer to the person that we're trying to understand. Audio sounds okay. Audio has a little bit of scratch, but not too terrible. Sounds like an issue with the mic itself. Maybe I'll unplug. Sounds good. We're gonna have the mic unplug. I hope this is better. um, let me see. Okay, that should be okay. Now, so what Frankl actually portrays in his book is that love and math are parallel forces that reveal beauty, they foster connection, and offer profound personal growth. And what's cool about that is that, it offers us this wider perspective, um, in not just math and love, but in a lot of other broader topics in our life. So if we can calculate certain habits and behaviors and interactions with people, then we can better predict how we are going to relate with that person and how they're going to relate to us. I unplugged the mic, guys, so let's see if that's better. So what I'm going to talk about now that I shared the insights from the book, I'm going to talk about how generally in life, math and love intersect in surprising ways, and they're going to be a little bit more specific examples. So let's start with the first one, and this one's pretty interesting, but that didn't fix the issue. How am I going to fix my issue? Let me see. Let me see where we're at, guys. All right. Scratchy, but no. Maybe I should end the stream and start it again. Okay. I'm going to see if I can continue, and hopefully it's going to be better. So here are a few examples: patterns and probability. Patterns and probability. So relationships often follow patterns. I don't know if you have ever noticed that. How many of you have noticed that when you start one relationship and another, and you start several more, and after reflecting on these relationships, have you seen any patterns? Curious. I think it takes us some time to become adults where we can reflect on our relationships. Unless we've been with one person our entire life, then of course we could still see patterns throughout the duration of the relationship. But well, I'll continue. So patterns. If you look at your relationships and you identify those patterns, math can actually help explain that. For instance, probability theory can predict relationships outcome, like partner selection or success. So this is called the matching hypothesis, that suggests that people are more likely to form relationships with others similar in attractiveness and personality, which can be modeled mathematically. And I always have a difficult time saying this word mathematically, mathematics. Anyway, so based on what we find attractive and what our personality are, we can predict who we are attracted to, because just generally we are attracted to people that are similar like us, or what's familiar. And what feels familiar is safe. And what's safe is something that is um wants that allows us to make that investment and go in and have effort into pursuing something that is similar, because it's human beings. We want to be safe and comfortable and secure and adventurous and curious, but we don't want to necessarily or subconsciously, it goes back to like how we think. It's like we are in our tribe, and biologically we are from a tribe. We are together. We are together and acquire resources, and we're together with people that are similar and familiar. So we do that in love as well. And as many times as we say we don't want to be with that type of person, we end up with that type of person unless we consciously make those decisions but subconsciously we are attracted to people a lot like us. And we can change that only if we're conscious. So that was like really interesting with patterns and probability that, especially the matching hypothesis that suggests people are more likely to form relationships with others similar in attractiveness and personality. And this is kind of cool. Edward, I was single all my life, but I had some patterns in the past for what type person I was attracted to. Yes, it was usually persons who needed help. Oh, this is called the project type, where you see the other person as a project you need to help. And this could also appear to your hero if you see a damsel in distress or a woman who needs help. Like this just appears to your hero complex where you want to be the hero, and that's biological. That's like men want to provide for the woman, they want to save her, be her hero. From the woman's point of view, it's usually if uh, if we're attracted to somebody who needs help, it's we see them as a project, or an empath who can relate to that person's suffering. So that's actually really good insight. So the next example is geometry of love. Now, geometry is sometimes used to symbolize love, like the heart shape or metaphor, two hearts becoming one, both of which can be explored through mathematical principles. So, have you ever wondered why the heart symbolizes love? Because if you think about it, literally, our heart is this weird oval shape, sort of, and it's not geometric at all. But then the way we portray our heart is this geometric shape. So it's really interesting that the shape of the heart has structure. It's geometric. It's mathematically perfect. So that's really interesting. Um, the next example is statistics in relationships. And I drew up on that a little bit from the book, but math plays a major role in modern life, especially in dating apps. So algorithms use statistics to match user base on comparative factors such as preferences and personality traits. This is really interesting because you can see, well, if any of you have been on dating apps, like I was on Tinder, I tried it in 2000 and I think 17, maybe. I don't know when Tinder came out. But I remember that the the app was showing me similar profiles based on my engagement with the person, and that they were using probability and based on how long I was messaging them or if there was successful meetings, right, the dates, then they would create this whole probability on like how likely I would engage with the next person if this one didn't work out. And it's kind of crazy because I wonder, is the algorithm affecting how I interact with people, or is am I influenced by this technology, or is that me informing the technology what my preferences are, and how much of it is actually geared towards my benefit versus the company's benefit in acquiring more data on me. So it's just always this quandary of why do we do what we do, and how much of is influenced from truly what we want and need versus um, what we're responding to in our environment, because there's nurture versus nature argument. It's 50-50, like we're 50% nature and 50% nurture. I think it's 49 and 51 breakdown. But it's really interesting how like modern love and dating is significantly different from what it used to be. And if you think about it, and back in the day, my mom's generation or grandparents, they all met in the dancing hall when they were teenagers, and they were in that village or small city or city like New York City. You still met these at these social clubs or at schools, which attracted certain types of people with similar interests, and then you got matched up like that. And there was not a lot of anomalies in that. And I think that now we have more opportunities and choices and opportunities for anomalies, and yet we still are attracted to what we know. and what's a lot like us and who is a lot like us. So very, very interesting stuff. Um, any other questions before I continue? Stanley, I'm going to go into, I don't know if you were talking about the golden ratio or golden rule, but I'm actually going to discuss golden ratio next. I'm going to take a water. So I'll continue here. The golden ratio. So this mathematical concept is often linked to beauty and attraction. And it's appearing, and I've mentioned this earlier when I referenced the book. Um, so the golden ratio is a concept which is linked to beauty and attraction. And that has to do with facial features, body proportions, and even the symmetry of nature and art. So everything has a structure. Like I said, beauty has structure, nature has structure, and symmetry, what we deem as symmetrical, we understand to be beautiful. So it's really everything. And then the golden rule is really about symmetry, and are the facial features proportionate, the hips to the shoulders to the bust, like, and how we understand over time, in evolution, that symmetry is actually what helps us stay alive, what helps us procreate, what help and therefore stay alive as a human species. So a lot of the times, I know, Stanley, you mentioned that you make decisions based on math, but love not so much. And love, we are taught that it's an emotion, it's a feeling, but we're not taught that it's math. And I wonder if we would make better decisions if we understood how math is applied, or if we would make more conscious decisions. And maybe, and is that even a good thing? Like, is what if we in love just became spontaneous, and actually it love is very subconscious. Like, we don't consciously think about love, we don't know how we fall in love. Like, we say I love you because, but like that, there's a chemistry that happens, then there's a chemical process to love, and that has structure, that has math, but it's we often always think about, if I thought about math and love, I thought about dating apps. Like, there's formulas, but there's chemical formulas and there's cognitive frameworks, and it's really interesting. Yeah, I really found love and math interesting, which is why I wanted to share it with you, because it does apply to whether we love someone or love something. If we love art, if we love fishing, if we love the other person, think of how math is really the reason, or one of the reasons behind it. Maybe the reason is, maybe physics just, and geometry is the answer to all of our problems. And I don't know about you, but I sucked in physics. Like, I got a D. I was good in math, but like, I think after 5th grade, my math scores just went down. But I did go to technical school, and that required a lot of um, quantitative learning, including statistics and geometry. Um, yes. Hi, Alex. How are you? Yes, you can ask a question. Go right ahead. I loved physics and math. So good point for me, I guess. Edward, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's, you either love it or hate it, or you probably, I mean, I didn't have the best um teacher. I had a good teacher in math until 5th grade, then it just went downhill. But I did have a good physics teacher. I just wasn't interested in it. But now looking back, I think if physics was taught in a way of how it applies to um, everyday life, I think I'd be more interested. But when we were talking about airplane drift, and it just lost me, I think, in that regard. I enjoyed math, but was not very good at it in school. The second time I took algebra in college, it just clicked. I know. I took algebra in high school. Actually, I never even took math, algebra one. I think I got to algebra in high school, and then college, no math except physics and accounting. And then I went to grad school and I had to take all of these math classes. So I had to learn statistics, probability, algebra 2 in community college in New York so I can get into Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And then I had to repeat those courses. That's how behind I was in math. But again, I think it clicked, like to your point, it clicks later on in life if we could relate it to um, our lives. I mean, that's why anything is really interesting if we could relate to it, right? Um, so yeah, that was the golden ratio, and I got a couple more examples. Hi everyone, hi Tabura. So equations of balance. Relationships require balance, like solving an equation. Both partners need to contribute equally to maintain harmony. It's so interesting because you know how you fight with your partner because one may be an introvert, the other one is an extrovert. One likes people, the other one doesn't. And you have a lot of course, you have similar values, or you hope to have similar values, and but you always have different personalities. Do you notice that it's sometimes opposite? Well, because that is harmony in the relationship. It may not be at times harmony within you because you want the person to think and be like you. I think it's conscious, but they're only there to be different to create balance in your life, to create unity and balance in the relationship. This is why typically one person is an extrovert and the other one's an introvert. Why one person has a lot of energy and the other one less. So it's supposed to create a relationship balance and create perfect symmetry in the relationship, even though love itself isn't perfect. But it's perfectly imperfect, and therefore, again, there is some logic to the madness. Um, Having a great start to the week. How about yourself? Hi, Tabra. Were you actually tuning in? I think this is, yeah, math is great. Where are you located? I'm curious. Alex, your video is good, but your video is not well edited. So what do you think about it? I love your videos, but I think if you enhance your videos, looks more like trendy way, then you will get more reach. Great insight. I'm going to reflect on that. Thank you. Uh, Tabura, I'm from California. Where in California? I love California. Love, love, love California. I used to live in Irvine, San Diego, and Bakersfield. And California. Where else? San Francisco. I spent some time there, and Redwood City, Silicon Valley. So California is absolutely beautiful. Please share your opinion. Okay, so let me continue. I'll get back to you on that, Alex, but thank you for leaving the feedback. I appreciate you. Let's see, exponential growth. I got a couple more examples. So, as Frankel mentioned in his book, e- exponential growth, he talked about depths, how you can go endless into exploring it. You can go into love and math endlessly. Like you can, there's so much to explore. There's no finite end. It's just infinite possibilities. Just like in love, you can grow exponentially when nurtured, similar to how small investments yield exponential returns over time. My brother, he always says that people invest in the other as if it's like a rising stock on the stock market. He makes a relationship between investing in love to the stock market, and he says, "Does the stock look like it's going to rise? Probably. If yes, then it's a great thing to invest in, because then you're only going to go up or infinite possibilities." That's he always mentions that, and I always think it's just so funny. And then he always says, like, everybody wants to invest in a good stock. I mean, it makes sense because you want to minimize your risk, but you're still risky in investing. So love is risky. It's super risky, definitely. Um, Alex, I'm a video editor, so can I join your team as a video editor? Oh, you know what? I'll review your videos, and I'm happy to take a look at your portfolio. So thank you. My email is getbymakeitwithalice, and it's also on my channel, but I'll type it in here. With Alice at gmail.com. For those of you who are wondering, thank you for offering that. I appreciate that. Then this one's an interesting one, game theory in relationships. I want to talk about that. I don't believe Frankel mentioned it in his book, but decision-making relationships, such as compromising or resolving conflicts, can be modeled using game theory. This one is a game changer, where individuals choose strategies to achieve the best outcomes for both partners. So it's a little bit of negotiations, and everything we do in life is about negotiations and is about understanding what the other person wants and needs to best position ourselves what we want and need. So, like sales, we use negotiations. We use negotiations every day. Every day we have to decide what's best for us and what's best for the other person we're responsible for. And in a relationship, we are responsible for the other person. So if you're thinking about the relationship, you're going to think about um, the best strategies where both of you can win. So a win-win is when both of you can win. And the relationship is really about, can the unit be stronger or the two of you be stronger than you independently? So ideally you want to be in a relationship that where you're stronger than if you are single. But that requires a lot of like give and take, and that's just, game theory is very interesting, and I think if you like to geek out on it, then you could really you could do a lot of good applying game theory to your relationships. But it's so funny. Like, I don't know if you've applied it, but I haven't. Stanley, have you applied game theory in your relationships? I'm kind of curious. Um, Kind of curious what you guys think. Looks looks like most of your live streams last about 1 hour. I'll try to stop back before you end if I can. I wish your channel the best. Thank you. And I will be publishing the live so you could come back to it. Thanks, Tabura. Yeah, that's game theory. Well, you know what, Stanley, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to let me know to define game theory. Dear ChatGPT, what is game theory? I love ChatGPT. So ChatGPT says game theory is a mathematical framework. I can never say that word. I'm an immigrant. I'm from Czech Republic, and somehow I get stuck on certain English words. I grew up in the States, and I still cannot pronounce mathematical. Maybe that's how I should say it. It's a mathematical framework used to study decision making in situations where the outcomes depend not only on your own actions, but also on the actions of others. It's widely used in economics, politics, psychology, even biology to understand competitive and cooperative behaviors. In game theory, games are modeled of strategic interactions between rational decision makers. The theory helps predict how people or organizations might act in various scenarios. Okay, so this assumes that we are rational beings and that we're pragmatic. This assumes that we're not crazy or irrational. Not to say that that crazy is being irrational, but you get the point. I would say that game theory works if we're rational players and we understand how to think critically. But it's interesting how game theory could be applied. But let me actually ask, how can game theory be applied in a romantic love relationship or romantic relationship scenario? Give give me a example. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT because I'm curious now. The first thing it said, prisoner's dilemma. The decision to communicate honestly or hide feelings. So this is a scenario of how game theory could be applied in love. And its first thing ChatGPT wrote, imagine a couple, Alice and Bob, who are navigating a disagreement. They both have the option to either communicate honestly about their feelings, cooperate, or hide their feelings to avoid confrontation or defect. They each make their decision independently without knowing what the other will choose. The possible outcomes are both cooperate. If both Alice and Bob communicate honestly and openly, they can work through the disagreement, strengthen their relationship, and grow closer. This results in a positive outcome for both, win win. One cooperates, one defects. If Alice chooses to communicate openly, cooperate, but Bob hides his feelings, defects, Alice will feel vulnerable and potentially hurt by Bob's lack of openness. Bob, on the other hand, avoids the immediate discomfort of confrontation, but the lack of honesty could lead to frustration in the long term. This outcome is less ideal for both because one win, one lose. Both defect. If both Alice and Bob decide to avoid honesty and hide their feelings, they avoid immediate confrontation, but the issue remains unresolved. Over time, this could lead to resentment, misunderstanding, and emotional distance, which is a bad outcome for both. So, in this scenario, the couple faces a decision where the best outcome, both cooperating, requires mutual trust and understanding. However, both might be tempted to defect, hide their feelings, to avoid discomfort, leading to a worse outcome for both. So, the game theory dilemma highlights the tension between short term avoidance and long term relationship growth. Wow, that is awesome. So, what prevents relationship growth is not being true to your feelings and not being open and honest with the other person, because eventually that really destroys the relationship. So, we got to practice more game theory in our relationship. I hope that this clarified game theory or that checks out. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I'm going to continue game theory. That was a good one. Last two examples. So, fractals and imperfection. Love, like fractals in math, can appear chaotic, but holds deep beauty and structure when examined closely. Wow. I don't know what else I got to say about that other than that love isn't perfect and there's beauty in perfection, though we're taught that something that's beautiful is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect math or perfect love. So let's stop teaching it to our children. Have you ever heard of know your why? Uh, I know about no, like, are you referencing like why you do what you do, or the philosophical question of why am I here on this earth? And what are you referencing to? I'm curious because I can answer that question. Last one, measuring love. Though love is immeasurable in its depth, surveys and scales can quantify aspects like passion, intimacy, and commitment. I want to actually look into this more. How do we measure? Okay, so how we measure commitment? If we measure commitment based on time you spend with that person, like the duration of the relationship. So, yeah, I mean, if you have three long term relationships, the next relationship you're in, can you predict that can you measure based on your previous relationships? You can predict that you will be in the fourth relationship that will also be long. Um, Now, do you always, can you, is the probability accurate? It's just so interesting because, like, if you talk to a matchmaker, I don't know how many of you've had a matchmaker at one point in your life, where a matchmaker is somebody that matches you with another person. I'm curious. I had one, and it's really interesting because one of the first questions they ask is, "What was your longest relationship?" I wish they would have asked, like, what Describe the depth of your relationship because the longest is based on time. So then they could, you know, what are you going to say? Like mine was all over the place, a few years, a few months, and doesn't really matter because I think like, but does it matter, right? Because like some people had many relationships and then they reach like 45 and they meet the one and they're married 20 years. But if they had many short-term relationships, probability will probably indicate that that marriage is not going to last. But there's so many of those examples where the marriage does last. So I don't know how much we should stick to probability, but according to Frankel's argument, love has a lot to do with math. And for those of you that just joined, I was referencing Edward Frankel's Love and Math, The Heart of Hidden Reality, where he draws philosophical parallels between love and math. It's a great book to read. Um, so, to sum it up, math and love may seem different, but both involve patterns, balance, and growth, offering a unique perspective on how we connect and interact with the other person. That was my little small lecture for this wonderful topic. So I'm going to continue reading these comments and feel free to ask more questions. Um, uh, Stanley, so Alex wrote, my friend recently went through a breakup with his girlfriend. However, he still loves her deeply and is now struggling with severe depression. He cannot forget her in any way. Yeah. Breakups, and when they people say your heart is broken, think about it. Like when you're in love, you have a heart. When you have a breakup, that heart breaks. But usually if you draw, it's a zigzag, but then those two pieces can come together. Because if you have a heartbreak, like and you shatter the pieces of the heart, there you could still piece them together. See how weird math works? And you could put the pieces together that fit perfectly. Unless you throw out some of the pieces of the broken heart, then you can't. But if you just have two breaks and the two hearts disconnect, you could put them together. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just visualizing how a broken heart looks like. Um, but yeah, heartbreaks suck. I'm sorry for your friend. Can how The girl ended the relationship and got married to someone else. My friend is unable to move on, and despite my efforts, I haven't been able to convince him to let go. With heartbreaks, time heals, and there's a book called Radical Forgiveness that I have read. That when you forgive the person and accept, that is your method of healing. Only when we accept and forgive can we move on, because I had a heartbreak and it took me like 10 years to accept it because I was at fault and that was really hard. And I had to do some inner work and I accepted it, but I had to also forgive not just the other person, but myself for being in the wrong and for initiating the breakup, which caused the heartbreaks for both parties. Um, Radical Forgiveness is a great book. I'm going to type it here. Please read it for anyone dealing with any form of depression. A lot of the times it is about forgiving yourself, not just the other person, but forgiving the role you played. And that has helped me a lot. Um, Simon Sinek, I love him, talks about knowing your why. Okay. Let me see. Simon Sinek. I'm going to look it up. I'm asking ChatGPT. I think it's about why you do what it is that you do. It comes from the book and popular TED Talk, Start with Why. Okay. Why? The purpose or belief that drives you. Yeah. Why you are with this person, why you do what you do. And that's absolutely asking that, and not just once, but checking in with yourself. You could do this every week, every month, every year, but really checking in is like, why am I doing what I'm doing? That's uh, allows us to self reflect, be aware, and make better decisions. I always try to make decisions not when I'm in the valley or when I'm not feeling good. Those lead to the best decisions. So I'm only making, I told myself, I'm only going to make the decisions when I'm not in the valley, when I'm like level headed, um, and feeling like good, because making decisions when you're low is never a good idea. And even thinking about your why when you're in a bad spot is also not a good idea, unless it inspires you to get out of that situation and feel more balanced. So, um, knowing your why, yeah, I could actually take a note of that. I touched up on a little bit in reference to living your purpose, and that was last week's live. So if you go to my channel under live, then you can check it out. I talk a little bit about finding your purpose and why you do what it is that you do. Time heals all wounds, says Stanley. We all go through that. Your friend is not alone, regardless of how alone they feel. Absolutely. Edward, it is really hard to forgive yourself. I know it is. I'm still working on it. It's very difficult, but I'm telling you, when you do, it's this like, I remember when I forgave myself for ruining that relationship. It took me 10 years. And it also helped that he also forgave me. I remember I cried and there was this like cloud that lifted. It felt like this heavy cloud sitting on my shoulders. And when it when it lifted, I felt this inner peace. And that's so important because when it led to integration, and when we're integrated, we're in a state of joy and flow. When we're fractured, we that's when disease comes. And um people spend their whole life being angry and not forgiving themselves and what role they played in that heartbreak up. It's very easy to point fingers at the other person, but the relationship is two people, and it's never 100% the other person. You have a role you play, and forgiving yourself. And sometimes it's just lack of resources or lack of support. And it may not be your fault, and you make a decision and it was not the best decision, and you can't take it back. Um, that book, Radical Forgiveness, might help your friend, and it's a really good book. So thank you for sharing that. It's very difficult. Heartbreaks. Ouch. Um, Stanley, I do that with YouTube comments. Sometimes I wait 1 to 2 days before I respond to those really nasty comments. Yes, yes. We never respond, or respond and hit delete. I actually I get some negative comments, and I sometimes respond, sometimes I don't. And but it's yeah, the negative comments, uh publicity, all publicity is good publicity, including the bad ones. So all comments are good comments, including the bad ones. Edward says inner peace, like in Kung Fu Panda. I love those movies. I know they speak so much to who we are and our psyche, and um, they're based on life principles that have been proven, and certain laws of the universe that have been proven for centuries. And we just seem to make things more complicated than they are. Um, we're more exposed to messaging more than ever. So I think in today's world, like, we have 30,000 daily messages, marketing messages exposed, whether it's billboards or ads on YouTube or Netflix. Like, we are inundated with information, and then it becomes almost harder to follow some of the principles in the Kung Fu movies, which is why we should all watch them again and practice some of those life principles. So, Edward, it is maybe a waste of time to respond to negative comments because it is easy to be mean on the internet. True. But it's also an opportunity to learn. So a negative comment and your ability to professionally respond to that is a form of or a practice of improving your communication. It is a practice of self-reflection, introspection, and these are all good qualities that we need to maintain relationships and strengthen our love. Homework assignment for this week: watch the Kung Fu Panda movies. I'm gonna do that after the three body problem that I'm gonna finish watching tonight on Netflix. So yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much for all the comments. Do we have any last comments or questions before I end this live stream? Give you a couple more minutes. I really appreciate all of you for tuning in. And Stanley, thank you so much for being such a wonderful supporter, not just to me, but to many YouTubers. And you've been a great mentor. Give Stanley a shout out. Check out his wonderful YouTube channel on fishing. And he does other stuff down there too. So we got to support one another. And for those of you that are coming back, um, uh, you've been on, Edward and Jake Lizardman. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Anybody else? Thanks, Jake. Thank you. I'll be doing these lives every Monday. It's at 6 p.m. They'll be about an hour. Next week, I don't know what topic I'll have on, but I will leave a comment in the community tab. So thank you so much. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Make sure to subscribe for those of you that haven't. And I appreciate you. Big kisses, big hugs. Bye.